What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, it's a very rare Wednesday show. I don't know if we've ever actually had a regular scheduled show come out on Wednesday, but everybody's got to get used to it because with the NLL moving into the offseason, we go into our offseason schedule, which is starting this year. It's a bit different than our previous years. We'll kind of break it down later on in the offseason of what direction we're taking this podcast. We're not ready to release that yet, but we are going to be Wednesday only throughout the entire NLL offseason. We're still going to be around covering the Buffalo Bandits and all the players and the NLL and everything. But Phil, how was your long Memorial Day weekend before we dive into what will be a monster show with a monster game coming up on Saturday?
I worked, so
I figured,
yeah, it was pretty much normal, and for the most part, I kept forgetting that it was a holiday weekend pretty much every single day. That like Saturday, I think I went out to maybe Home Depot or Lowe's. I don't know. I was doing some running around. I was like, wow, it's extremely busy. That's interesting weekends are always busy at those places, but it seemed busier than usual. And then I was like, oh, right. Big holiday weekend. There's a lot of sales going on. This was kind of a mistake to try to pick up a few small things at these stores. And then Sunday, same thing. I don't think I really went out too much Sunday, but I just had the same thought. I was like, oh, right, holiday weekend. Everything's busy and it's warm out and people are out doing things. And then Monday, I just worked like normal and then rushed off to watch the Colorado Mammoth play a National Lacrosse League game.
That's fair. That's probably a good way to put it. Yeah, Brooke was out of town visiting a friend out in Washington, D.C., so I was home all by myself with the dogs, and it was a very quiet household. And she was back in time for the Monday, like you said, disappointing, and she fell asleep, and I wish I could. So we'll dive into the games now, but remember you can follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and go check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com.
Before we dive in,
yes.
I do have a question for you.
I'm not ready, but go ahead.
When the wife goes away and you're home by yourself, is there a change of food, or like is there something that you do that normally, I'm not gonna say you're not allowed to, but normally that you don't get as often? Is there anything you do where you're like, all right, I'm by myself, this is the meal that I really love, or this is the show I really like to watch? I know you played a little bit more Xbox than maybe normal, not that you don't play anyway, but you played maybe a little extra. But is there something you do while the wife is away that you get to, I don't know, splurge a smidge on PK?
Well, Phil, you and I lived together for, close to 2 years, and I am not what they would call a good cook. I butchered, what is it, homemade mashed potatoes,
yes.
or
mashed potatoes
instant mashed potatoes? Yeah, I butchered that. Don't know how. There's like 4 steps, but I ruined it. So, yeah, I don't cook myself. I did grill up burgers on Sunday for lunch. We had the Bandits game on Saturday, so I just ate at the arena. It's Friday? What did I do on Friday? I don't know. I made frozen pizza one night.
There it is. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a lot of just stuff I can't mess up because I can't cook for anything. So, I mean, like I explained, I ruined instant mashed potatoes. I can't do anything. So
I think it's the frozen pizza. I think that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, frozen pizza was one of them. I defrosted some burgers, and then I had Burger King coming home from, we talked about it when we were going back from the casino. I stopped at Burger King and got my Burger King. But other than that, it was just whatever I couldn't burn. Like, Phil, I don't think I've said this on the podcast. I think I told producer Pat, me and Brooke ordered subs, I think 2 weeks ago, and she was like, you can have my other half of the sub. I didn't know it was wrapped in aluminum foil, because subs typically aren't wrapped in aluminum foil. They're just wrapped in that outside paper shell.
Sure.
And that's what it was. And I didn't unwrap it. I was just like, I'll pop this in the microwave for 30 seconds.
No.
Learned very quickly it had aluminum foil in it. And within 3 seconds, the whole sub was on fire. So I had to quickly open the microwave, pull it out of the microwave, throw it into the sink, and spray it off, because I opened the door and I blew it. Like, okay, this is not big of a fire. I can just blow it out. Nope. Didn't work. It just spread quicker, and had to reach my hand in there, grab it barehanded, hurt myself, and throw it in the sink. So yeah, there's another reinforcement of I shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen to cook anything because I will burn the house down.
Is the microwave okay?
Microwave's good.
Good.
I saved the sub. It was a little toasted. It was a pizza sub too, so it turned into garlic or French bread pizza. But yeah, almost burned the whole house down. Because who puts aluminum foil on a sub and then wraps it up? I blame the company. But I like their food, so I'm not going to crush them on this show.
All right, we can get into the games now. I was just curious.
Yeah, that's what I typically do. Anything to not burn down the house, and I still almost did it. So game 1, Saturday in Banditland. After the start they had, it ended up being a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. They won 13-12. They were actually down 8-7 and a half after a 4-0 start to the game. Smith had 5. Frazier and Nanakoke each had Hattie. McKay, McCulley each had 1. Vince, 31 save shots were 54-43 in favor of Buffalo. Face-offs, Max Adler killed it. 17-12 for Buffalo, and then both teams were 4 for 5 on the power play. Phil, any big notes that you have with game 1 or disappointments, or pretty much we can just cover the whole game?
Honestly, I thought they played really well in game 1. I mean, coming off of the week off, we talked about it a lot. It's one of those things where on one side, it's great to get the rest and relaxation for a lot of the banged up players. On the other side, the other team's coming off just playing last weekend, and sometimes taking that week off, you start a little bit slower. This team did not start slow at all in this game, which was really good to see. And even just being able to, I mean, the biggest thing that we said going into this, which is pretty much the same every single game when you're going up against a good defense and a really good goalie, is starting off really quick, trying to, get in their head or just show even your own selves and your own confidence that, okay, we can score on this goalie, we can put it past this defense, and starting 4-0 really quick into the game was humongous for this game. And obviously only winning by 1, you needed every single one of those goals. But I think the biggest or most exciting thing about this game was coming out so hot after that week off. I think there was a fair concern to have. You just don't know how you're going to be able to come off of that week off. Like, do you come out a little bit slower and really take a little bit to get up to game speed? This team did not. They came out really, really quick. Obviously, Colorado settled it in nicely shortly after that, but I think the hot start was really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, starting off with no burn, you got the news on Friday afternoon that he was questionable and then quickly ruled out. I think it was Daily Dive that broke the news around like 11:30, and then it was confirmed by Teddy Jenner probably around 2:30, I think it was. But he was out. The rumor is, and we don't really want to speculate just because it is a rumor, but the rumor is he has a concussion. He was out on Monday's game, but Dylan Robinson came back. And the biggest note here, Buffalo Bandits, he's a lefty. On your website, since he was drafted, you still have him as a righty. Let's fix that. He's a lefty. I saw him out on the field in person, in real life, and he is a lefty. So let's get that fixed. But like you said, started off with 4-0 start. You got to Dylan Ward quickly. We said that on our Friday show that you had to get Dylan Ward quick, get him off his game. And like you said perfectly, off a week, how are they going to respond? Their offense didn't miss a beat to start the game. 4 goals, 8-16 into the game. But then Colorado came back, and you kind of knew they would. It's kind of what the NLL Finals is. This is 2 best teams remaining. Colorado would go on to score 7 of the next 9 goals and 8 of the next 11. And then Bandits would score the first 4 in the second half, but Colorado again would score 4 of the final 6 goals to keep it right in there. Chase stepped up, his awareness to scoop up that ball on the 3rd goal and score. Nanakoke stepped up, his battling in the corner. I don't know if you were at the arena because you had something prior obligations to start the game, but I don't know if this happened in the first quarter or the second quarter or the third, but he was in a battle in the corner for 30 seconds. Like I think it was on even strength. I think they might have been on the penalty kill to start, and then he drew a penalty. I don't know how he was able to battle in there. He took a beating in the corner there, had the ball for like 30 seconds, and then drew the penalty. The man is just unbelievable. He stepped up unbelievably in these finals, and I think really, I don't want to spoil this for later in the show, but Nanakoke has been one of the leading forces of this offense now that Josh Byrne has been out. You needed somebody to step up, and I think that's been Nanakoke.
And he's the kind of player, we talked about it a lot against Ward. He's your guy. Like, he's the kind of player that's going
100%.
to score against Ward because he's the one who gets into those dirty areas, gets into the middle. And most of the goals you see with him doing it, he's right on top of the crease. He is finding a way to fake Ward out, who is not a good goalie when he has to go left to right. He just struggles. He's a bigger goalie, so he doesn't do as well once you get in close and try to make him move a little bit. Nanticoke had his number and still does. Even in the second game, Nanticoke has just been all over Ward, and his ability to find a way to score and just how he does it is insane. Even in the second game, I think it was even more mind-blowing how they kept finding him in the middle of the defense, and he would just turn and fire and goal pretty much without looking and make it a little bit of that twist kind of shot. I don't know how he scores the way he does, but he's playing absolutely incredible in these two games, and he has been the player to really step up on offense outside of Dane Smith. But I think Nanticoke, I mean, he's been quiet at times as far as goal scoring goes. Like we say, he does a lot of the dirty things, draws the penalties, makes lanes for players like Dane Smith, but sometimes he goes a little bit quiet with goal scoring. In these finals, especially these two games, he has really stepped up and looked really good.
Yeah, the biggest thing I want to, and then we can move on, but like you said, 7 goals in these 2 games so far. He had that 5-goal explosion last year in game 1 of the finals as well. So he is I don't want to call him the X factor because everybody knows him. He's an unbelievable skilled player, but I think you put it perfectly. He's that type of player that you need to win the championship here, to beat Dylan Ward, because he's the one that going to get in. He's the one that's going to make Dylan Ward uneasy and off his groove. And you know how far out he plays. This is the type of player you need. But that goal on the power play, it went from Bucky to McKay to Nanticoke. Phil, Nanticoke has been more of that calming presence. Nothing can really shake him. You can kind of relate him more to Lyle Thompson. He just goes out there, he performs, he does his job. He doesn't get too hot, he doesn't get too cold, nothing like that. I have never seen Tehoka Nanticoke that fired up before. That fist pump he had after that goal would have knocked out Mike Tyson. It honestly would have knocked him out. He was so fired up. I've never seen him in the 2 years he's been playing now for this team. And yes, he played in college, but I didn't really follow him in college. We were getting our coverage his rookie year. That's really the first time we've really been covering him. I've never seen him that fired up before, and you can tell how much this title means to him and the team just based on his expression there, because my God, Phil, he was fired up after that goal.
The other big note on offense, which is a little bit more of a negative one, kind of expected in a way, but at the same time, not nearly as expected as much, I think, as we thought going into these games. I know Byrne being out is one thing, but they've played plenty of games without Byrne throughout the entire season, so losing him, while obviously he's a massive loss, he's number 2 on the team, he's a arguably top 10 player, top 5 player in the entire league on offense, so yes, he's going to be a humongous loss. I'm not saying that you can just immediately fill the void that he leaves, but we've seen this team play quite successfully without him, or at least find a way to play without him, with McKay stepping up, with Cloutier stepping up, and the lefties, while their assists have been incredible, and I think finding a way for them to still be very productive and feed the right side is still huge. You need that, especially against a player like Ward. We've talked about it a lot. If you get him moving, that's how you score. So passing needs to be really strong against a goalie like him. But seeing Cloutier, who played really, really well, he was tied with Byrne with 11 goals on the Bandits coming into this series in the playoffs, and he's gone pretty quiet as far as goal scoring goes. McKay has played on offense before, and he's been a little bit more successful in the past, I think, when he's played offense. Not that he's playing poorly in a role that he's not exactly built for. I mean, he is their kind of emergency lefty forward that they call up, but it's also not necessarily his, go-to spot. So saying that he, isn't playing all that great when he has 1 goal and 6 assists, that's incredible for a player that's getting kind of that emergency call-up spot. So I'm not saying he's playing bad by any means, but we've seen him have really solid games throughout the season on offense, and he also has been struggling to find a way through as far as goals go. So I don't know if the left side defense of Colorado is that good, or if the lefties are just simply missing Byrne that badly. But I think Cloutier, to me, is the big one that kind of disappeared on the left side. I feel like he needs Byrne out there to kind of take some of the pressure off him and some of the defense off him so he can shine a little bit more. I don't know how well he can do it on his own. Even watching him a few times, you can kind of tell he's trying to pull moves like Byrne does, and he's just not quite the same player. He's still extremely good, and we need him, but he's obviously not the style that Byrne likes to play. So trying to see him kind of lead the left side, I think he's struggling a little bit when Byrne's out there and he can kind of feed off of Byrne and kind of those two can work together. I think that's when Cloutier shines a little bit more, when he's more of that 1B and Byrne is the 1A. I think with Byrne not there and Cloutier having to take a lot of the weight of the left side, I think he's just struggling to find a way to score goals.
Yeah, I think the righties were instrumental in this game. But real quick, they have power play in the fourth quarter on the Frazier goal where he did his nice little celebration after his hattie. There were 5 loose balls picked up there after missed shots or banks off the board or something like that. I thought that was unbelievable. But like you said, the righties definitely carry this. 11 of the 13 goals came from the righties, but the lefties were more the distributors in this game where, like you said, McKay, 6 assists, Kluch, 4 assists, Bucky had 6 assists in this one. I know he's a righty, but still. And it just seemed like once Byrne went out, they had Frazier step up, who's, credit to him, he is not anywhere near 100%, and he's gutting it out in the Monday game that we're going to be talking about in a second. But how many of those times did he come off the field limping, where it's just, how is he going to keep continuing? He went down the tunnel, he was on the board for a bit, they were working on his leg, and they came back. This might be the first game where he's actually had like a knee brace. I don't remember ever seeing him in a knee brace before, but he's gutting it out because I think he knows that there's no Byrne. He can't keep being missing any games. So while he's not anywhere near 100%, he's still giving it a go and still performing where he can. But like you said, the lefties definitely need to have some goal presence from that side. Otherwise, you're going to see what you saw in the Monday game where they're more able to push more defenders over to the righties because they know that the lefties aren't coming up. But I guess we can switch over to the defense. Well, real quick. 3 no goals in this one, Phil. I think there were 3. I know 2 of them were reversed from Buffalo. I think one of them from Colorado in the fourth quarter as well. But this could have been a bit more high scoring as well, just based on there were 3 goals that were called back that went in the net and then disallowed. The one that I think it was the Chase Frazier one behind the net. There was another one from Buffalo and then the Colorado one in the fourth quarter. But there were a lot of goals that were taken off the board. So this 13-12 game could have been even higher.
Yeah, for the defense, I think I just don't understand why the defense can't seem to figure Colorado out at all. I mean, 12 goals is not an insane amount by any means, and obviously in game 2 it got absolutely out of hand, but I don't think it's necessarily, toward the end it was just kind of being piled on, and I think the Bandits had all but given up for the most part and kind of moved on to game 3. But for the first game, still 12 goals is not insane, but it's not great. And especially for a defense coming in, you just played a very talented Toronto team and absolutely shut them down. You're averaging 7 goals against in the first 3 games against pretty good offenses. And then Colorado comes in, and I don't know what it is, like what this offense offers that other teams don't, that the Bandits cannot seem to figure out on defense how to perform against Colorado. And when you look at their team on paper, it's fine. They don't have a bad offense by any means, but they don't have an insane offense. I mean, I think the Seals would have a better offense. There's other teams out there that I think have stronger offenses. I think they're pretty comparable to what Toronto has to offer, and you were able to shut down Toronto with no problem for the most part. And yet Colorado comes in the first game during the season. When you play Colorado, they put up 13, one of the bigger scores you've had in the season against you, and now they put up 12 and 16. I just don't understand. Like, I'm looking for answers as to why the Bandits seem to struggle so much against Colorado on defense. I mean, offense, we know they have Ward, and Ward likes to stand on his head, and a goalie can single-handedly change the outcome of a game. We've seen Vince do it. We've seen Del Bianco do it. We've seen Rose do it. So defense and goaltending, and without Byrne, that's a whole different thing. I think putting up 13 in the first game was really impressive without Josh Byrne in the lineup. I think they did a really good job. So that's not concerning to me all that much, but the defense, I really don't understand what Colorado was doing so well, that the defense that has been an incredible shutdown defense for 3 games throughout the playoffs and even throughout the entire season, they played really, really well, all of a sudden just struggles so much against this team.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go into it more in the game 2 recap, but I thought they actually did really, really well in the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter in this game 1, where after allowing 8 goals, like I said, they were down 8-7 at halftime. They only allowed 1 goal in that whole third quarter. It felt like they were getting it figured out, and this was the old Buffalo team from the regular season where they were, locking it down. They were figuring out what this offense was thrown at them, and they were able to figure it out. Like, I thought they played very well on Zed Williams. He still got his, but he's always going to get his. He's a monster out there. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. McLaughlin, he seems to be the new Buffalo Bandits killer. 6 points in this one, 7 points in game 2. He seems to be the one that they're leaning on to be that goal scorer, and we'll dive again in game 2, but I thought they did pretty well in this first game. Yes, Colorado's always going to hang around. Like you said, I don't exactly know why Colorado has Buffalo's hands so often, but they're just filled with gamers. They're filled with guys that don't get too high. They don't get too low. They figure out they are playoff performers. And yes, Buffalo has the same kind of playoff performers where, yes, they just haven't gotten the job done. We'll talk about that in a second. But Colorado, they just know what they need to do to win. They know what they need to do to get a hold of Buffalo. It's getting in close on Matt Vince, getting in, with those weird angles and those quick passes. And they are pinpoint accurate with those passes. But it's that Vince Priolo massive save with 13.4 seconds to go. The Dane Smith again, where he was getting double teamed and just hurled it down there, and then Zed Williams diving across the crease with time expiring. It felt a lot like the Toronto series last year in the playoffs, where they were trying to score with like no time left on the clock. It was terrifying. But how many one-on-one saves did Matt Vince come up with in game 1 that kept Buffalo in it? I think this is more where you're leaning, where's the defense and why is Matt Vince all alone? But my God, Phil, he was making those amazing saves when he needed to. This is what you want out of a goaltender, to bail out your defense when they're coming up weak or coming up a little bit slow on those aspects. But he was just unbelievable in this game, and he is another big reason why they started off this series 1-0.
And in the first game, Colorado going 4 for 5 on the power play also. I mean, you take 4 goals away. Even just make that 2 of 5, you're looking at a little bit better score, closer to 10. So their power play and the Bandits penalty kill also needs to step it up. That's another area where Colorado seems to kind of be just having their way. I mean, same with the Bandits offense against Colorado. Buffalo's power play is also just incredible. So the special teams on both teams, as far as penalty kill and power play, penalty kill for both teams seems really rough, and power play for both teams seems really strong. So that was another aspect that I think going into game 3, you're absolutely going to need to look into, because the power play or penalty kill for the Bandits is a big issue as well. And that goes back to a lot of the extremely quick, accurate passing that Colorado does that you just mentioned. And as far as players go, McLaughlin, obviously the huge one, and it doesn't help that Lee seems to be heating up as well. We said that he kind of has that ability. We've seen it in the past from him. He's just still coming back from injury, but he's another one who seems to be getting hot at the right time, which is not great.
I got 2 last things, and then we'll bleed into game 2 here. Dane Smith, he's just the third Bandit besides Nanticoke and Stainhouse to have 5 goals in the finals, and that was also his 13th playoff hat trick. Huge accomplishments. The last thing, I really want, I know I will never be a part of it. Maybe the only way I'll be a part of it is if they put a microphone in it. But they do it after every halftime and before every game, where Steve Priolo is in the center of that huddle and he's talking to the team. I just want to be a fly on one of those players' shoulders and just listen to what he has to say. I don't know if there's anybody else on planet Earth that would get me as fired up as Steve Priolo. He just such an emotional player in that circle, and you can just tell how much it means to him. I just wish I could be a part of one of those circles, one of those huddles. I know I will never be able to, because I'm me. I'm past my prime in 30 of a never played lacrosse player, but I wish I could hear what he was saying in one of those huddles. I know it would probably not be family friendly, but still, I would do anything to be a part of one of those huddles just to see and get pumped up like he does. But game 2, Nothing like game one. It definitely hurt. I guess it started like game one, but it did not finish like game one. Game two, lost 16-10. They were down 8-5 at halftime. Nanakoke had 4. Smith had 2. Kluch, McKay, Buchanan, and Frazier each had 1. Vince, 42 saves. Shots were 59-48 in favor of Colorado. Buffalo did have the faceoff advantage. Max Adler has been unbelievable in these finals. 21-9 power play though. Buffalo 4 for 4, Colorado 5 for 11. It was a very ugly game after the first, 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was not pretty. I mean, it started, like you said, really good, and starting 2-0, 3-1, it sounded really exciting. We're like, all right, here we go. This is their chance, and then everything just kind of fell apart, and it got ugly really quick. I mean, the first half, I think they hung in just long enough. The dagger at the very end of the first half, I think, was killer. But for the most part, down 8-5 at half, you're still thinking, okay, it's only 3. It's a game of runs. The offense can do it. I mean, they're struggling right now, but they can do it. They have the ability to do it. And obviously, they did not get it done. And more importantly, the defense, and Vince even had a few soft ones he let in. But the power plays, the penalty kill, the entire team, it was a very gross game.
Yeah, I mean, you start 3-0, or I'm sorry, 3-1, or you start 2-0, then it's 3-1, then Colorado scores 4 straight. They score 7 of the next 9. Third quarter, 5 of the 7 goals went to Colorado. 4 of their 10 goals between the second and third quarter were on the power play. Here's the numbers here, Phil. Starting in the second quarter, they were on a 4-goal run into the second quarter. Then Buffalo scored. Colorado scored 2. Buffalo scored 1. Colorado scored 2. Buffalo scored 1. Colorado scored 2. Buffalo scored 1. Colorado would score 3. It's just, they were not even trading goals. Every one that the Buffalo Bandits would score, Colorado would come back and score 2. It just, when you're down like that, you can't get down against a team like Colorado. You want to play up against them because just how locked in Dylan Ward and that defense can be. On top of the penalty trouble, which is going to be a big talking point about this one. But I said it before even Colorado's first goal. And I said it in our group chat where we're talking about the Bandits and everything. I said, like I said, before even the first Colorado goal, I noticed it. It just seemed like the defense was just a second slow between switching and the awareness on defense. It just seemed like they were a tad too slow. I don't know if it was the elevation. I don't know if it was the travel. I don't know what it was. But the defense just seemed a bit out of it, a bit out of position on each one. Like I said, just a bit slow, and you can kind of see that. Once Lee scored his 3 of the first 4 goals, it was downhill in the second quarter. The defense was breaking down. They were leaving guys wide open. The second and third quarter, they couldn't get the offense going because the penalties were piling up and the shot selection was horrible. It's just, the offense couldn't get anything going. The defense couldn't stop them whatsoever. Man, Vince was kind of left out to dry, a lot of them. I couldn't blame him on probably 10 or 12 of these goals were just, he had no chance because the guys were getting left open. I think the biggest talking point in this one, and there was a lot of them, was the defense was just, it seemed broken. This is one of the worst performances we've seen out of defense in a very long time.
Yeah, the weird thing with the defense heading into this game, I mean, like you said, maybe it was just elevation or travel. Obviously, they're not going to give excuses, so we're going to try not to give excuses. You played against the Seals earlier in the year. I know they were coming off a back-to-back, but pretty similar situation. The Seals, I think, had 1 travel day in between before you saw them in a humongous in-season game. Obviously, a championship is a little bit different, but the Bandits went out west, and you played against arguably the best offense in the entire league, held them to 6 goals. So you have it in you to go out west and play really good defense. What's weird and seems to be just strange with the defense in general, against Toronto, they did a ridiculously good job of getting very compressed, packing everything in, not really going outside too far, staying very close to Vince and just keeping everything away from the center and keeping everything outside, forcing Toronto to take 60 shots in a game, but all of them were outside. Vince could easily see them. And they seem to be just going away from that style of defense. Like you said, the switches were slow, but even seeing the way that they were switching off and allowing players to easily get behind them, they just seemed so much more spread out and like they were attacking so much higher against Colorado than I think they ever did really against Toronto. I think against Toronto, they seemed to just stay very close together, very compact. And even when you were doing switches, it was really quick with a guy who's like right next to you, whereas this, they seem to be allowing players to get way in behind the defense and get right in front of Matt Vince because they seem to be just farther outside of what we are used to them seeing. I'm not sure why they're playing so much higher than I think we saw against Toronto, whereas against Toronto, they played very low, again, right in front of Vince, may have screened him a few times here and there, but for the most part, they kept Toronto very to the outside, forced them to take really far shots, and I think they kind of seemed to go away from that. I don't know if Colorado had some kind of strategy to force them to go away from that. I don't know if the quick passing has something to do with it, but it seemed like they were just playing a much higher defense than I think we saw them play against Toronto, and I hope they switch that up and go back to their compact style of D because it seems to work a little bit better.
Yeah, it seemed a lot more like they were playing into Colorado's game plan rather than forcing Colorado to play into theirs. It just seemed like you said perfectly, they were playing too far out, which was allowing those quick stick passes on the inside and getting in close to Matt Vince. And I know after the press conference, Steve Priolo was talking about how they were getting frustrated because every time they were diving in the crease, they were landing on Matt Vince's feet. Well, if you want that to stop letting players so close to Matt Vince. It's very simple. You just got to do that. I guess I shouldn't say it's very simple because I don't play lacrosse. I can't figure that out. I try not to talk the X's and O's because that's not the biggest part of my watching of lacrosse. It's more just, giving my opinions on the game and everything. But I just think that the defense was not. I fully expect them in Game 3 to step back up. I fully expect them to make the adjustments they need to, and I fully expect. I think I tweeted out that I think this is a different team than it was last year going into the finals. I can't imagine them going into Game 3 and putting up this kind of performances again. But it was. I guess we can move on to what we saw from the offense, and then we can kind of get into the penalties and everything. But the offense, it's hard to blame them too much just because of all the penalties that were coming out, and you can kind of not get in any rhythm when you're trying to kill off penalty after penalty after penalty. You can't get in any kind of groove. You can't really set up your offense. But in that second and third quarter, it felt like when they were 5-on-5, they were going back to their old system of ways where they were getting crushed last year in games 2 and 3 versus this team because they weren't getting inside. They weren't getting into war. They weren't making a move. In the fourth quarter, how many of those goals? Chase Frazier got in close. Nanakoke got in close a couple times. It just seemed like a lot of the shot selection and the player movement in the second and third quarter was playing right into Colorado's hands. It felt like once the second quarter hit, everything just came undone. It felt like the defense was struggling so much. The penalties were being taken in the offense. Just seemed like all three aspects of those just came crushing down all at once. And you saw what happened where they only scored 2 in the second, 2 in the third. And that's pretty much where it came down because Colorado scored 5 and 5. And like I said, when it was 1 and then Colorado scored 2, there's not much you can do, but it's felt like the offense, which yes, you're missing Josh Byrne. Yes, they made the adjustments to shut down Dane Smith and you had to become more of a distributor in this game than game 1 where he scored 5 goals, and you knew Colorado was going to make the adjustment. It just seemed like Buffalo's offense couldn't make any adjustments to Colorado's adjustment.
I think kind of what we talked about earlier is exactly what we saw play out, where the right side was still the dominant force in this game. The left side just has no answers right now without Josh Byrne, and hopefully they can find a way to get the left side in some kind of rhythm. I mean, for right now, I think we have to assume Josh Byrne's not going to play simply because that's the information we have. I mean, I don't want to assume he's going to be there. I hope he is, but I mean, I think you have to kind of, in a way, plan for him not to be there. So I think the big thing with this game and seeing this offense was, again, you see everything came from the right side. All the great plays, Nanakoke with 4 goals, Smith with 8 points, Buchanan with, 3 or 4 amazing chances right on the doorstep that he just could not find a way to score. Even Nanakoke could have arguably had 5 or 6 goals, but again, everything's channeled through the right side. Once Colorado figured that out, in that first game, now you shut down the right side and you force the left side to step up, and no one on the left side is finding a way to step up because I think they're just struggling to really get it together without Josh Byrne. And Ian McKay, we know he has the ability. Cloutier, we know he has the ability. But when you have a guy like Dylan Ward back there, you have to find these kind of magical plays in order to score against him. I think with them really forcing the left side to score and kind of in a way daring the left side, like, okay, we know everything in the first game came through the right side. We're going to force you to find a way to make it come through the left side. We're going to try our best to shut down the right side. And even still, Nanticoke again with 4 goals. Dane Smith leading the team with 8 points. So they still found a way on the right side to make things happen. Even Fraser getting out there and getting a goal. And then even Buchanan, again, had a little bit of a rough game because he couldn't find a way to score, but he had a lot of really good opportunities right in front of Ward a few different times where this game could have been a little bit different, especially early on. He had 2 major opportunities where he missed the one that went off the post. That was the ridiculously slow kind of floaty shot. But if that goes in, you're looking at a 2-goal swing because Colorado scored on the next possession. And he had another one where he had a 1-on-1 with all the time in the world against Ward. Ward made a huge save. And then again, on the next possession, Colorado went down and scored. So that's a 4-goal swing right there if Buchanan can kind of finish those off. But again, I think the biggest thing going into this next game is the left side with or without Byrne. Obviously, if Byrne back, that left side is massively different looking. But if he's not there, they have to find a way to create some sort of offense from that side, or else Colorado's going to do exactly what they just did and just focus on the right side and kind of dare your left side to score.
Yeah, when I talk about the righties and lefties here, because this is the wrap-up of Game 2, but I think the biggest killer in this game was that Zed Williams goal right before halftime, where Vince needed to make that save. Being down 7-5 versus 8-5 in a game like that was a massive difference. So I think you brought it up earlier in the segment where that goal right before halftime was pretty much what it was, where being down 2 rather than 3 in a game where you're coming unglued would have been massive. But the difference between the righties and lefties, I did this total up just because we knew how bad the difference was, but hearing these numbers, it just further illustrates that they need some more goal scoring from their lefties. For the righties, Nanticoke in the 2 games, 7 goals, 2 assists, 9 points, 19 shots. Buchanan in those 2 games, 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points, 7 shots. Smith, 7-7-14 for 23 shots. Frazier, 4 goals, no assists, but 4 points, 18 shots. For the lefties, though, here comes the big discrepancy. And I know there's 4 players versus 3 here, but still. Kluch, 1, 8, 9, 14 shots. McKay, 2, 6, 8, 12 shots. McCulley, 1, 1, 2, 6 shots. In total, here's the big numbers here. And I know you really want Josh Byrne back. We have no idea if he's going to be playing. Who knows? Right now, like I said, I think you put it perfectly. You got to go into this game assuming Josh Byrne isn't going to be playing. So you need one of those lefties to step up. Righties, 19 goals, 17 assists for 36 points and 67 shots. For the lefties, 4 goals, 15 assists, 19 points, 32 shots. They're shooting even half of what they're shooting on the righty side. Not even the goals just aren't flowing from the lefties. You need somebody on the left side to step up and put some goals in, because otherwise the Colorado defense is going to see exactly what everybody else is going to be seeing. Hey, if we shut down the righties, lefties can't score, nothing's going to happen. We're going to dominate Game 3.
And the shots alone, I mean, I know McCulley's never really been a huge shot taker. It's just not what he does on the team.
Needs to happen, though.
Right. He's the quick stick kind of guy, which I think they had a few times that they almost had. A few times they had it wide open, where obviously that's one of the big ways to score against Ward. Everybody knows it, but it's still a difficult shot to kind of take. I mean, you have to get that pass perfect. You have to get the shot out immediately. He does get over. He's not a ridiculously slow goalie. He does make that, shift to get over into position. He does have that ability. He doesn't just stand there. So you still have to take that shot extremely quick, but they had a few, I think 2, 3, or 4 opportunities that looked wide open. Net was wide open and they just missed. And like you said, McCulley is the quick stick kind of guy on that left side. So even if he's, especially for what we see, he's only taken 6 shots in 2 games. He's not someone who often takes shots, but maybe that can work to their advantage and start feeding him a little bit more often on some of those quick stick opportunities, because the defense might be not paying as close attention to him because he isn't one of the people that takes a lot of shots on the left side. But in general, Cloutier is someone who shoots a lot, only 14 shots in 2 games. McKay, not a player that shoots a ton as far as an offensive weapon goes. He usually is the kind of player that likes to feed and also get in close. I think he's another one similar to Byrne, that he likes diving quite a bit and just really getting in there, and they're struggling to find that way to get in, but he's still playing very well, again, as that emergency kind of left forward. But like you said, 67 shots versus 32. So if the Colorado Mammoth find a way to shut down the right side, the left side right now with only 4 goals isn't threatening whatsoever. I mean, the assists are still good. It's really good to have assists. Obviously, you need to be able to pass the ball to the right side as well, but Colorado can essentially just ask the left side to score and force them to score and kind of double up the entire right side. Just have two guys on the left and have everybody on the right doubled up, or have somebody constantly switching to double up the right side and just kind of dare that left side to score. And right now it does not look like they're going to be able to do it. So somebody on the left side, or all of them, need to find a way to step up, and it's going to be interesting, but they need to find some kind of way to adjust that left side. And even Cloutier has tried a few different times to get inside, but he's another player that I feel like his MO is a little bit more of that outside quick shooter, quick accurate kind of type shooting, but he's someone who can find a way to the inside, but he's not someone who often does crease dives, maybe a few times a game, but he's not Josh Air Byrne. So I think his MO is also a little bit to the outside. So that's another one of the problems, is you have guys on the left side who shoot, but they are kind of falling into the trap of what Dylan Ward loves to do, which is have them shoot from the outside. So it's just about finding the way inside on the left side and the right side. If they know as a team going into this game that they might kind of double up or figure out what that right side's doing, then those guys are going to have to find a way to adapt as well. And I think we saw it a little bit in the second game, where players like Fraser, players like Smith were going to the left side and kind of shooting that off position shot. Even though they're righties, they were kind of swinging all the way to the left and shooting that kind of off angle shot, which I think looks cool and can kind of confuse a goalie a little bit. But if you're still taking that far out shot, it's what Ward is all about, and he loves those far out shots. So it's still not a great way to try to find some offense, but I do think that it'd be interesting to see if guys on the right side are going to start shifting over to the left side a little bit, just to try to find some kind of offense over there.
Yeah, I think McCully can be the big time X factor in Game 3 if he can be that bully on with the lefties, being more of that Nanakoke role where, yes, he's setting the lanes, yes, he's setting those picks, yes, he's doing all the dirty work there to get Kluch and McKay free. But if Byrne is officially out, why can't McCully be that Nanakoke who's getting inside, putting in those moves in front of Dylan Ward? He has the ability. We've seen him do it multiple times. You saw that diving goal in Game 1. He can do it. I think if they lean on him a bit more from the lefties, because those shots aren't falling and you're not getting very many chances from the lefties, if you can get him inside and in close to Dylan Ward, I think that can capitalize it. But just real quick, and then Phil, I'll let you take the next segment because I know you're itching to talk about it. But Ryan Lee's got to get shut down. 6 goals on 11 shots. He's heating up, like you said. I thought they've done a pretty good job on Zed Williams. Like you said, he's always going to get his, but he's taken 24 shots, 4 goals. I think they've done a pretty good job of locking him down. I know Bryce Sweeting, Adam Bomberry, Justin Martin have done a pretty good job of locking him down and limiting his opportunities. McLaughlin's been the killer, 6 goals, 19 shots, 13 points. And then Robinson, he got crushed in Game 1. I've never seen a man get hit so hard so many times along the boards. I couldn't believe he came back in the game, but 4 goals, 17 shots. I think they've done a decent job of limiting the main goal scorers. There's not just one guy killing them. It's a collection of guys, which definitely stinks, but they're not letting one guy beat them like they did last year in Zed Williams, where he took over because he was the last guy remaining. But I think if you contain Zed Williams, which is tough to do, if you don't let Ryan Lee heat up, which again is tough to do, and you can somehow limit McLaughlin to 2, 3, 4 points, something like that, don't let him get to the 6, I think you stand a very good chance. But Phil, the biggest talking point in Game 2 was the penalties. I will release the microphone and let you take this segment away.
My problem with the penalties and the refs in general in both games is the exact same thing it's been that we've talked about. Whenever we don't like the refs, it's all about consistency, what they allow, what they don't allow. And I just don't think the refs, once again, have a good control of what they're letting go and what they're not letting go. Sometimes they'll let players get absolutely demolished and not call anything right in front of their face. They'll get cross-checked to the head. They'll get thrown down. They'll get headlocked and just trucked to the ground. There's illegal moving picks left and right. Players are flying all over the place, and there's no calls. And then you get a slashing call that happens, 600 times a game, that someone is constantly getting slashed in the arms, and not half the time it's on the stick, whether it's the guy who has the ball or doesn't have the ball. Players are always getting slashed, and yet somehow the Bandits ended up with multiple, what seemed like an everyday play slashing call in the second game. But in general, it's just the consistency of what they're allowing and what they're not allowing. It seems like they just randomly kind of pick and choose a time to call a penalty where half the time it's being let go and the other half of the time they're like, that looked bad enough. I guess we'll finally call that one a penalty. And to me, that's just the most frustrating thing watching the game is like sometimes you see the Bandits get, something happens to them, which you see as a clear penalty, and the refs let it go right in front of their face. And then the Bandits turn around, do something similar or even less threatening, and then the refs go off and call that one. I mean, I know in the first game it was 4 or 5 on the power play for each team, so there really wasn't much of a difference there. This game, I know in the second half the refs were really just trying to lock down because obviously the Bandits, it looked like, as far as playing wise in the second half, had pretty much given up on trying to come back. They had sparks here or there where they would score a goal and you're like, okay, maybe they got a chance, maybe they can go on a run and finally lock things down. But toward the end, obviously the refs were just trying to clamp down. I understand that aspect of it, but it seems, again, like they don't know exactly how they want to ref the game, where sometimes they'll let vicious plays that seem almost injury-prone plays, they'll just kind of let go right in front of them, and then other times they'll call something much lighter a penalty, and I just don't understand that aspect of it. That's the thing that frustrates me the most. I think just watching the game, it's not necessarily what they're calling. Sometimes it is, but it's what they're letting go versus what they're calling, and just the consistency on both sides. I mean, the Bandits even a few times got away with things where I'm like, all right, well, that guy just got absolutely demolished and we're not going to call that, yet they called it 5 minutes before that, a very similar play. And I just don't, that's the kind of stuff that I don't understand. And also the unsportsmanlike conducts and the talking penalties, those also just seem, I don't know. We will never find out what someone realistically has to say to get a penalty for talking, but I would love to know at what degree they're grown men in a championship game, probably swearing the entire game, I imagine, bad talking each other, talking smack, I would imagine, after pretty much every single goal. So I wonder what the actual line is. This is more just curiosity more than anything of what is the line that you can't say something that you're actually going to get called a penalty for. But for the most part, yeah, it's just the consistency of what is being called, what's being let go, and just they seem to be a little bit all over for both teams.
So I can twist that consistency in your face and throw it back at you in 1 second. But the Chase Frazier one, I don't know how that one was confusing because he got a penalty on a goal for unsportsmanlike talking to the ref when Buffalo scored. That one didn't make any sense. He wasn't even talking to the ref. Yeah, he wasn't even talking to the ref. He was talking to
that's why I want to know. Again, it didn't end up mattering, but I want to know what do you have to say in that situation to get a talking penalty when he's walking? He must have said something to a Colorado player, but again, they're grown men in a sport. Obviously, you don't want to take it too far.
He got the penalty for the talking to the ref. It wasn't anything he said to the band or the Colorado. It was a penalty for what he was saying to the ref when he wasn't even talking to the ref. We scored, so what are you possibly saying in that situation to draw a penalty? And then they called the goal back, it was a 2-goal swing because they scored on the power play. Right. It makes no sense because the goal didn't count. So in my mind, the penalty shouldn't have counted because if the goal didn't count, the penalty would. Yeah. But nice I understand the penalty still going. But the only call in game 2 that I have a problem with is, and the announcers, Teddy Jenner, Pat Gregoire, and everybody else was very confused with it too, but the shot by, I think it was Ian McKay, went out. And why wasn't it Buffalo's ball? That was a horrible, horrible call. Even Teddy Jenner was going, I don't understand how that was. My issue, though, to flip it, don't complain on the field. Complain as you're running off, because that led to a Connor Robinson wide open shorthanded goal, and that was the end of it. I think it was down to 2 or 3, or it was 3 or 4 down to, and you let him go all the way back because you were complaining. Yes, it was a horrible, horrible call, but it's a massive difference there because you didn't get off the field. 3 guys were complaining. Nobody got back on the penalty, on the power play, and you let them score wide open. But for me, you were talking about consistency, how they were calling slashing and calling holding and stuff like that, but they weren't calling other things. To me, that's consistent. They were calling slashing. You can't get away with slashing. They were calling holding. You can't get away with holding, but you can get away with all this other stuff. So to me, I thought the refs were being very consistent in this game. I have no problem with what the refs were doing because To me, this falls on the coaching and the leadership. And I've defended John Tavares and I've defended Steve Priolo all season long. This leadership failed them in game 2. They had the opportunity to come back in this game. They have the offense to do it. You were seeing that slowly in the fourth quarter, that they were slowly making a comeback. Yes, they might have fallen short of it. Yes, it might not have ever happened, but they were kicking themselves in the foot over and over and over. There's no defending. There is no defending the Steve Priolo unsportsmanlike conduct. You cannot tell me that he got that ball and maybe he wasn't aiming at Chris Wardle. Maybe that was a complete accident. But why are you even doing that in that situation when you know you're going on the penalty kill? It was a lack of awareness for me. It comes down to coaching, lack of discipline, and lack of leadership. You need to tell your players, hey, this is game 2. We are not out of it. Why do we keep taking those stupid penalties? There were 15 penalties called from the second quarter on. That's just unacceptable to me. That is undisciplined lacrosse for a team that was so laser focused. And I have never seen that team become unglued in the playoffs like they did all season long. I mean, they were struggling in the Toronto game where it was 18-7. I can understand the breakdown there, but in a playoff game, game 2, you're taking the illegal substitution in the end of the second quarter. What is that? How, like, even Chris Cloutier is running back to the bench going, how the heck does this happen? To me, it was a failure in leadership and a failure in coaching to allow 15 penalties. How do you not call a timeout and just settle everybody down? I know they play with emotion, and I completely understand that. But you saw Colorado being down 4-0 in game 1. They weren't going out headhunting and taking stupid penalties. It just seemed like they fell back into the old routine of what Buffalo had been known for years and years and years, is not taking anybody's crap and going out and battling back and making a statement. That was not the time to make the statement. At the end of the fourth quarter, if you want to take the penalties and try to make a statement, then you can. You were doing it in the second quarter, in the third quarter. To me, that's just they came unglued and nobody stepped up and just settled everybody down and said, guys, we're still in this. It's the second quarter. We're down 3. We can come back. It's just, I'm not putting this on the refs whatsoever. I thought they were very consistent in this game to me. Yes, they were letting a lot of stuff go, but they were making it known what they were calling and what they weren't. And Buffalo just was making the things that they were calling, and Colorado wasn't. It was even in penalties going into the second half. Both teams had 3 penalties called against them. It was even until the third quarter, and then Buffalo just came unglued. It's just, I can't blame anybody but Buffalo and the leadership, and just, it was a failure from the top down.
Yeah, I think the second half, I think as soon as it started to get away, like you said, I think they just gave up. I mean, within the first, couple minutes, they were down 10-6, 11-6, and I think at that point, it was pretty much over as far as mentality goes. And I think, like you said, I think they just immediately switched focus to anger and the fact that they were down the whole time, and the game clearly wasn't going their way. I mean, this was one of those games where even pretty early on, it was one of those games where, again, I talked about Buchanan not being able to score some of those goals, and then at the other end, Matt Vince is letting a ridiculous squeaker from a behind-the-back, absolute terrible angle go in. It's not really on Vince. It's just one of those games very early on where I was like, this does not seem to be Buffalo's game. They're just simply, they don't have it today. They're not going to win. They're not getting the bounces. They weren't getting the plays. Like, Colorado was scoring on ridiculous plays and even getting some, like that, again, that far shot out that Vince would normally save 99 out of 100 times. He lets in even that goal. Another one behind the back with absolutely no angle that squeaks just between his pad. It's those kind of plays that happened throughout the game. And I was like, all right, this is just not their game to win. It just wasn't. They weren't getting the bounces. They weren't getting any of the kind of luck. And I think the team felt that in the second half. Again, it got out of hand pretty early in the second half with it being 11-6 kind of early on. I think it was halfway through the third quarter. It was already 11-6. And at that point, like you said, I think it was the leadership. No one really kind of settled the team down. I think they were just very angry with what was going on. You could see Bomberry's frustration the entire game with players diving in the crease. Ethan O'Connor also did the same thing where he was just very angry with what was going on. This is a team that I thought for the most part headed into this game was doing very well with their discipline as far as, like you said, the team that is normally known to be very hot-headed and angry. I mean, Priolo going into the championship as a whole had 0 penalties called on him throughout the entire playoffs going into this. And I think it all just kind of fell apart in this game as far as their frustration just building. You could tell they kind of lost focus on coming back and just really let their anger fly and just got extremely upset with just everything kind of going on. And even the end of like you said, that illegal substitution at the end of the second quarter, starting the third quarter when you needed a comeback on the penalty kill is not how you're going to get that started. And they ended up scoring on a power play pretty much right after. I think they killed that one off, but then scored one right after. And then coming out of the halftime, you needed that first goal more than anything. Down 8-5 is already bad enough. Down 9-5 looks terrible. And then you absolutely needed that goal. So I think they just very early on in the third quarter lost sight of what they were doing. I don't want to say they, like, in the first quarter or first half really, like, took the foot off the gas as far as trying to win it. But I think sometimes that mentality of, if we lose this game, we have another one in our pocket. We are going back to our hometown. We're going back to Banditland where all of our fans are. Not that you want to necessarily, like, give up on this game. I'm not saying that they went into this game thinking, like, oh, we don't need to win. If we win, that's great. If not, whatever. Obviously, you want to go in winning. But I think it seemed like in the third quarter, especially when the score started getting kind of bad, they definitely fed into their own emotions. I think they just kind of leaned into the fact that they still had one game left in their pocket to kind of come back and hopefully finish it off. But I don't know, I'm not saying the reffing in this game like caused the game to go the way it did. Obviously, it's on the team. I'm not saying the reffing in either game really kind of just caused the game to be how it was. I mean, the other weird play to bring up, speaking of your, kind of out of bounds play that should have been the Bandits ball, was the other one where they blew the whistle about 15 times and then let Colorado just play anyway and ended up getting a humongous breakaway while they were blowing the whistle and then just let it play like nothing happened because Vince made the save. So there was no goal. So luckily they got away with, I don't even know what was happening. Even the announcers were like, what just, like, they were actively blowing the whistle 4, 5, 6 times and then let Colorado just get a free breakaway against Vince. Luckily Vince made the save, but it was another one of those plays like, what is going on right now? And there was another really bad cross-check to Nanako's face. I know he gets it quite often, but there was one that was just brutal right in front of the ref, and they thought, even the announcers thought, that the ref raised his hand for a penalty and then put it down, and then even the announcers were like, okay, how is that not a penalty? He just got cross-checked to the face. Don't understand why there wasn't something called there, but again, I don't think the refs by any means dictated what happened in the game, but I think just the way they were kind of throwing calls out left and right and not calling certain things, just that's the part that kind of just bothers me a little bit. But yeah, like you said, I'm not saying the refs were by any means the reason the Bandits lost. I think pretty early on in the third quarter, they just kind of lost sight and kind of gave up mentally and just really fed into being frustrated as a team, as a whole, for playing a really, really bad game.
So we'll go over the milestones that happened this weekend. Chase Frazier, he crossed 100 career playoff shots. Steve Priolo did play in both games, so he did pass Rich Kilgore and Billy D. Smith for third place in team playoff history. Chase Frazier, Matt Spanger, and Justin Martin all tied and moved into a ninth place tie with Kevin Brownell and Chris White for games played. Dane Smith, he tied Mark Stainhouse for second in team playoff history in goals. Chris Cloutier, he did pass Darius Kilgore for sixth in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Chase Frazier, he tied Ryan Benesh for eighth in playoff goals. Nanako, he also tied Ryan Benesh in goals. He is up to ninth as well. Chris Cloutier, he did pass not just Ryan Benesh, Jason Crosby, Jim Veltman, and Delby Paulus. He also passed Rich Kilgore and Micah Kersey, so he has sixth place all by himself for an assist. He also passed Ryan Benesh in points for the Buffalo Bandits in playoff history. Nick Weiss and Dane Smith, they both passed Rich Kilgore in loose balls in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Matt Spanger, he tied Andrew Watt for fourth in cost turnovers. Max Adler, he is now the team leader in faceoffs attempted in Buffalo Bandits history. Dane Smith, he is now tied with Mark Stainhouse in goals in NLL playoff history for ninth place. He also passed Dane Doby for third place in assists in the playoffs. He also passed Colin Doyle he's tied with Colin Doyle for fourth place in NLL playoff history in points. Max Adler, he is now in eighth, tied with Jordan McIntosh for face-off wins. And the last one here, Steve Priolo, he is now he passed Mark Stainhouse for fifth place in NLL playoff history for loose balls. With 22 this weekend, he has now passed Mark Steinhaus. Unbelievable performances, and more players are moving higher and higher on NLL playoff history lists with records.
Max Adler, Sir Championship himself, already in top 10 in NLL playoff history in faceoff wins. He does not get talked about enough for what he's done in the first two games. I forgot who, Adam Levi, right? Levy was the one who tweeted out that Edwards would have his number in game two because he wouldn't let it happen in the championship, and yet Max Adler came away with an incredible face-off performance. That's actually another pretty decent talking point, which frustrates me watching the game, that I think this team needs to learn how to plan what happens when Max Adler wins a face-off. He's winning so many of these clean, and he has no idea what to do with the ball. And it's so frustrating to watch. It's something that I watched over and over because he kept winning every single face-off, and yet every time he picked up the ball, he just runs to the offensive side where the Bandits are usually defensive heavy to start the face-off, and then he has no idea what to do with it. And I don't think it's necessarily Adler's fault, but the team has no plan for him, and it's happened throughout the entire season. When he wins a face-off, the team doesn't have a plan for him to go to as an outlet. They need to figure out a way when he wins the ball that he either runs forward and ditches it back to the defense or tries to run to the defensive side if he has that ability. But so many times he won the face-off, Colorado would just double team him, and then they would end up losing the ball because he has nowhere to go with it. Luckily, the one time he ended up drawing a penalty, which, I mean, for all the complaining I did about the refs, I don't even think that was a penalty. I don't know what they were calling on that one. But in general, he's been doing such a good job with face-offs, especially in this championship series, and he's just winning a lot of them just very clean, and yet he does not seem to know what to do with the ball when he wins it. And again, I don't really think it's on Adler. The team needs a better plan to support him to win the ball off a faceoff and win that possession right away. And they just don't seem to have it. So many times he just kind of runs panicked, and then 3 or 4 Colorado players just follow him with no Bandits players around, dump him to the ground, and just take the loose ball. And it's not really fair for Adler, and it's not fair to the team when he's doing a good job winning these faceoffs, and they just need to give him a better outlet to find a way to keep that possession.
Yeah, it was Adam Levy. I always pronounce his last name Levi.
Yeah, I know, because of Devin.
It's Levy, yeah. But it's Adam Levy. And then I think Teddy Jenner is the one that pointed out where, yes, he was winning those faceoffs clean and he was getting in the offensive zone. He fixed it a bit and was going back. Instead of moving forward into the offensive zone, he was moving back and got it to Cipriello. So either he needs to do that moving forward, or they need to go split it 2-2. Maybe throw Dane Smith out there with Kyle Buchanan, because Dane Smith has been known to, I mean, he started his career playing defense and playing on the back end.
Or even like
there.
An Ian McKay on offense. Like start him with Buchanan on the offensive side where he's got that defensive ability if he needs to run back, and start with him.
Yes, perfect.
Start with 2-2, like you said. They just don't split it. So when he wins it, he has one guy Buchanan to throw to it, but Colorado often stacks their defensive side, so it's 3v1. When he runs to that side, he just gets double teamed and loses it. So, like you said, he either needs to learn himself. I mean, it's a panic situation. Faceoffs are very intense right off the draw. I mean, everybody's gunning for your head the second you win that ball. So I'm not saying this is on Adler. They just need to have a default setting for him. If he wins the ball, he either has to go back to defense, or like you said, they have to start splitting it 2-2, put an offensive defensive player, even a Dylan Robinson, who has known to be a little bit more transition, or an Ian McKay, who we know is offense and defense, put him as the split guy and try to have more of an offensive possession, or have him win it and ditch it back to defense. But they got to figure something out, because he's winning them pretty often so far in this championship series, and that's a free possession that they're kind of just throwing away because they don't seem to have a great plan for what happens when he wins.
Yeah, that's lefty, Dylan Robinson, lefty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they go 2-2, I know they did it once or twice in the regular season where Adler was just dominating the performance. I think maybe it was one of the Rochester games, or maybe it was the Albany game at the end, where I leaned over to Brooke and I went, they should do 2-2 because Adler's winning these clean and they can get some good opportunities here. I mean, there's been 2 or 3 opportunities now in the games 1 and 2 where he won it clean, and there's no passing lanes for him, so he just takes it to the net. Like you said, he drew that one penalty. I think that's perfect. They need to come up with a better system of either go 2-2, or every time he wins it clean, he's got to go back and get it to Steve Perillo and set up the offense. But I just wish they would go 2-2, because I think you saw it in the Tim Edwards goal. They won it clean, they went back down, they have the opportunity, and they cashed in. So I think Buffalo can do that if they get the opportunity and just go 2-2. Put Dane Smith out there, Ian McKay, Dylan Robinson, somebody, and just go split it 2-2 if he's winning those clean. Even if you want to wait until the second and third quarter to see how he's performing, which he's been lights out. I think he's winning like 63% of his faceoffs or something like that in the final so far. But Phil, we're running long here. which we kind of expected covering 2 games, and we're going to be talking about this third game. But we don't have to go over the players. It's pretty much the same players as last year and games 1 and 2 here and the regular season. Nothing's really changed. Who knows if Josh Burns is going to be playing in this one. But what do the Buffalo Bandits need to do, or what do they need to fix to win Game 3 and not fall into the same pattern they did last year where we have to sit through Colorado raising their trophy? What do they have to do where it's Buffalo raising that trophy instead?
Yeah, luckily, talking about those first 2 games as much as we kind of have a good idea of what they need to do, what worked well in Game 1, what collapsed in Game 2, and what they need to do in Game 3. I mean, one is get back to Banditland, get back to your safety net with all your fans. I know you mentioned to our group that the 100s and 200s are completely sold out, so we'll see what the 300s end up turning into, but hopefully it is a very loud Banditland. So that's part 1. Let's get home. Let's get back to Buffalo. And my goodness, would it be fun to watch them raise it. But as far as team goes, I think, again, for defense, they need to get back to keeping everything really compact. Don't let that team inside. They're getting way too often. They're getting good looks on the inside. They're finding ways to just burn the Bandits defense. And again, like you said, a lot of it comes down to slow changes and the Bandits kind of being confused. There was a goal, I believe it was the second game, where a player just simply ran past the defense, got right in on Vince and scored, and the defense was kind of just left looking around at each other like, oh, nobody picked him up. I think they just need to get back to playing much more compact in front of Vince, force everything to the outside, force those long-distance shots. Vince, I think, will be perfectly fine. We know how he plays when he needs to bounce back and stand on his head. He usually does that, so I think if the defense can find a way to compact again, force these outside shots, do not let Colorado get inside. Yes, it's going to happen every once in a while. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect. Even Toronto got in every once in a while. That's why you have Vince back there. But they're getting in way too easily, way too often, and a lot of it's simply not on Vince. So for the defense, I want them to stay compact. For the offense, they need to find a way to get that lefty. If Byrne is not in especially, they need to find a way to get those lefties unlocked a little bit. They need to find a way to get them active. I don't know what you got to do, but Cloutier needs to score. McCulley needs a quick stick goal. McKay needs to do pretty much what he's doing. He's doing all right. He got a goal and 6 assists for a emergency lefty forward. I'm not really going to complain about that, but if he can find a few ways to get inside as well, he loves his crease dives. So, I mean, if he's another player that can find a way to get in, that left side just needs to be unlocked. If they cannot find a way to score and it all comes down to the right side, it's going to be very tough. And as far as the team goes in general, the penalty kill needs to step up a ton, and the team needs to stay out of the box, which will also help the penalty kill and the offense.
Yeah, I think you summed up defense and offense pretty well. I don't really have to touch on that. If Byrne is back, you put Ian McKay back in the defensive zone. Not only does that help the defense, it will help the transition game as well, because the transition game is pretty much non-existent in games 1 and 2 because one of your main guys, Ian McKay, is not there. So if Byrne's back, you help both your defense and transition game and your offense. So you help all three. So hopefully Josh Byrne can come back in game 3, but who knows? It's a weird situation with injuries like it has been in the history of the NLL, but you got to make Dylan Ward move. You saw that in game 1, quick passing, quick sticks, get inside. You summed it up perfectly. Stay composed, no dumb penalties, stay out of the box, stay out of the box, and you definitely raise the banner here. But for me, I feel a big Chris Cloutier game coming on. We said that early on towards the end of the season where he was being really, really quiet, and then he lit it up for 4 goals versus Albany, and then he lit up 11 goals in the first 3 games in the playoffs. I feel a big Chris Cloutier game coming on. And I also feel Vince is going to explode. I don't think Vince is going to go down quietly. There is no way he's going to allow Colorado to raise another banner in his home arena. I don't think there's any chance. If whatever Mad Vince can do, he's going to lay it all out there. And I'm not putting this into the world whatsoever, but this could be the last time you see Mad Vince in a Buffalo Bandits uniform or in an NLL uniform. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm really hoping it's not. I'm trying not to put it in the universe, but really It sadly could be the last time you see Mad Vince play in the NLL. He's up there in age. I don't think he's lost a step whatsoever. I still see him being able to perform until he's like 50. I've said that so many times on the show, but it could be. You never know when the last time he could be wearing a uniform. So he's going to lay it all out there. I have no doubts about him. He's ticked off about the 14 goals that went in off of him. 15, I think it was. So I don't think you're going to see, I think it's going to be a huge Chris Cloutier and a huge Mad Vince game. But Phil, We went over the past 2 games. We talked them to death. We talked about what they need to do in Game 3. There's not really much more we can say about this. So, Phil, for the final time this season, what is your score prediction for Game 3 in Banditland for the whole shebang?
Real quick, I know it's all rumors, so it's hard to say anything other than speculation, but if Josh Byrne is out with a concussion currently and he is able to play, one of the weird kind of advantages of that is if he's not coming off a leg injury, then his ability to step right back into the lineup is different. I mean, coming off a leg injury, even if he was able to play, you might be limping, might not be 100%, but if it's head injury, concussions, which I think we have both had at this point, they're very strange. You have to get obviously medically cleared to play such a violent sport, but you feel okay physically even before you're necessarily cleared. I mean, you can kind of not have symptoms anymore, but you're still not going to be cleared medically because they can go through a lot more tests than your average person to make sure your brain's okay to play in such a physical sport. But if it is a head injury and he is able to come back, I think it's one of the kind of big things is that his legs will be okay. He'll probably feel okay physically to just kind of step in and be the Josh Byrne we've seen all year. And if he does come back, I think one of the big things for him is going to be trying to get him a goal early. You almost want to force feed it to kind of, again, make him a threat immediately to force Colorado to see him as a threat and really kind of start to spread out their defense again, not focusing so much on the right side. So if Byrne does play, and it is currently a head injury, I think he'll come back looking really, really good. And if he can get a goal early, I think that'll unlock the entire offense a little bit. But are we going to do 2 predictions, one with Byrne, one without, because we have no idea what's going on?
I would just do one.
All right.
I
will assume he's not there then. If we're doing just one, I'm going to play the, I guess, depressing card because I would love to see him in the game. But if he's not there, Bandits coming home to hopefully what'll be close to a sellout or at least maybe a Bandits version of a sellout, not knowing what they're allowing in the 300s. It's going to be crazy. Like you said, I think this team is very different from last year's team. I think they have the ability to win these close games. I think they have the ability to shake that last game off and come back ready to raise that trophy. So I'm going to give them the W, as is tradition. Let's see. No Byrne. It's going to be a little bit lower scoring, but Kluch is going to have a big game because that's what you're feeling. I'm going to go with your magical 13 to get past your 12, which is how you win. And I'll go 13-11.
Thought we were going to do it, but we weren't. I got a little bit more confidence here because I also said Matt Vince is stepping up. I got him 13-9. I don't think it's going to be as close of a game, and this might just be wishful thinking for my sanity up in the stands. But I can almost feel like it's going to be like the 5 minutes remaining, and the whole arena is going to feel it, that it's finally going to be breaking it down. Just the players on the bench are going to be elated. You're still going to be, chomping at the bit because Colorado can come back at any point. But I feel like if they're up by like 4 goals with 5 minutes to go, that environment is going to be absolutely insane. That 300 level is coming down. It's going to be mayhem in there if they're up by 4 goals with 5 minutes to go. My God, I really hope I'm a part of that environment because it would just be insane.
And make sure you keep the beach balls and balloons off the field until that final whistle.
Yeah.
But after that, hit them all on there. Celebrate, throw your hats, get excited. But yeah, I'm glad we both have 13. I think Josh Byrne, I don't think they can win without him. I'm not saying the game relies on Josh Byrne by any means. We've already seen it in game 1. They won without him there. If he's there, I think he's obviously a massive addition to the team. Pretty obvious statement, but I think he would just really help that left side. But again, they can win without him, so it's not necessary that he plays. I don't think, if they don't have Byrne, it's over by any means. They won game 1 without him. I think the team just needs to regroup and refocus from last game, do what worked for them in game 1, adjust a few things here and there. But for the most part, like you said, I think Matt Vince, I don't think he's going to allow this to happen if he has anything to say about it.
So final milestones for the year for Game 3. Matt Vince is one win shy of 300 for his playoff career. Dane Smith is 9 assists away from 100 for his playoff career.
What?
Did I say Matt Vince 100 wins? 30
You said
wins.
300 playoff career wins. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that would be insane. 30 playoff wins. Dane Smith, 9 assists away from 100 for his playoff career. Chris Cloutier, 3 shots away from 100. Steve Perillo, 5 loose balls away from 200. Nick Weiss, 6 loose balls away from 100. Josh Byrne, if he plays, 3 goals away from passing Micah Kersey for 4th place in team history. He is 2 assists away from passing Mark Stainhouse for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Ian McKay, 1 loose ball away from tying Rich Kilgore for 9th place. Bryce Sweeting, 2 block shots away from tying Kevin Brownell for 1st place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Johnny Tavares is 1 win away from tying Darius Kilgore for most playoff wins in Bandits history. The following playoffs will tie Pat McCready, players will tie Pat McCready for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history in games played with 16 if they play. Chase Frazier, Matt Spanger, Matt Vince, and Justin Martin. Dane Smith, if he plays on Saturday, he will tie Rich Kilgore and Billy D. Smith for 4th place in games played in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He is 1 goal shy of passing Mark Stainhouse for 2nd in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Chase Frazier and Tehoka Nanticoke are both 3 goals away from tying Darius Kilgore for 7th in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Chris Cloutier is 2 points away from tying Darius Kilgore for 6th and 3 away from tying Micah Kersey for 5th. Kyle Buchanan, 1 point away from tying Roger Weiss for 10th place in Bandits points in playoff history, and he's 3 away from tying Rich Kilgore for 9th. Nick Weiss is 2 pims away from tying Ian Lord for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Bryce Sweeting, 1 cause turnover away from tying Andrew Watt for 4th. Steve Perillo, 3 cause turnovers away from tying Chris Corbeil for 4th place in NLL playoff history. Nick Weiss is 4 pims away from tying Scott Carnegie for 10th place in NLL playoff history. Dane Smith, 4 goals away from tying Micah Kersey for 8th place in NLL playoff history. With 58, he's 5 away from tying Dan Dawson for 7th. With 59 and 6 away from tying John Grant Jr. for 6th with 60. Max Adler is 8 face-off wins away from tying Tyler Burton for 7th place in NLL playoff history. Steve Priolo, 4 loose balls away from passing Pat McCready for 4th place in NLL playoff history. Dane Smith is 2 points away from having the most points in a single postseason in NLL history. Phil, how'd I do for my final milestone moment of the year?
I realized Dane Smith was, I know he's having a good playoffs, but I didn't know he was tearing it up that much.
Elite playoffs. And he's doing it in 1 less game possible of the max.
Not only that, he's doing it in pretty much three quarters less almost, because
yes.
they just kind of stopped in the 4th quarter in the first 3 games.
True.
So they put out an extreme performance, and then he just shuts it down. But he's still playing ridiculously well, especially these 2 games without Josh Byrne against Colorado. Again, we've seen it all year long. You kind of have that one player you have to lock down. They know they have to lock him down, and yet he finds a way, even when he's not scoring goals, he's finding a way to put up assists. So still 8 points in the last game, even though it wasn't a great one. He was involved in all but 2 of the Bandits goals. The dude is really good at lacrosse.
So final segment here. I know we're going super long, but Tehoka Nanticoke is our MVP for this week. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points, 9 shots in game 1, 4 goals, 4 points, 10 shots in game 2 for 7, 2, and 9 on 19 shots in the 2 games so far. He's an unbelievable player. So happy he's a part of Buffalo and not Rochester, because that was the Rochester pick a couple of years ago. But just an unbelievable presence. He has stepped up in place of Josh Byrne, and when NLL finals come around, he comes around to play.
I really hope at some point they do get that. I forgot what it was called. What was the block assist or pick assist stat going at some point? Because he would be through the roof with that stat as well. So he might not get a lot of assists as a player, but he gets a lot of pick assists setting those lanes for some of those players to score. So hopefully at some point the NLL or whoever, IL Indoor, if anyone wants to take over that stat and really look into it, because it's such a cool stat to see some of these players like Nanticoke and McCauley, who do a lot of the dirty work for some of these other players to score, really get some kind of numerical value to that, because sometimes it's really hard to explain or show what they actually mean and what they're actually doing out there, even though, again, he only has 2 assists in 2 games, but 7 goals, especially when this team is struggling a little bit on offense. He is playing incredible.
So, Phil, I know I've said it multiple times, we ran long, but is there anything else you want to add to this show before we shut it down for a week, and we will be back next Wednesday to discuss what happened on Saturday night?
Yeah, I'm just really ready to raise that trophy in Banditland. I know some people were kind of mentioning, like you mentioned last time, that you want to see it, come back to Banditland. You want to see it raised there. Well, we sadly, in a way, got our wish again. So hopefully this time they are holding it when the final whistle blows and the Bandits win and we can all go crazy.
Yeah, I know I did try to do my Kyle Brandt speech last year and it didn't work, so I'm going to switch it up this year. You're going to sell out the KeyBank Center. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be unbelievable. Just be loud. Be as annoying as possible for Colorado. I know there's some debate whether it actually works. I mean, just being loud enough stops their defense from being able to communicate and helps the offense. The same thing with when their offense is out there. Yes, our defense can adjust and do the hand signals and everything. So whatever, just be as loud as you can. It's the last time you're going to be in front of some of these players. I mean, when you win, teams change. When you lose, teams change. This is the last time you're going to see this group out as one unit with this team forever. I mean, this is the final time. Things are going to change. Teams switch over all the time. And with the money coming into the NLL and the contract link, a lot of these guys are needing to re-up, whether they're RFAs or UFAs. So who knows who's going to be back next year? Who knows who's going to be re-signing? You don't know when's the last time you're going to see these players play in front of you. So just bring it. That's all I got to say is just Banditland, I know you are loud and proud regardless of what the score is. Just be extra loud and extra proud on Saturday night. I can't wait for it. It stinks it's only Tuesday night when we're recording this, and we still got to wait. But Saturday night, packed house, Game 3, NLL Finals, to a chance to break the streak of 15 years. I can't wait, Phil. I can't wait. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.